You already know the moment. You've lived it 100 times. You pick up your keys from the counter, pull on your shoes by the door, and before you reach for the handle, you glance back. And there they are, your dog sitting perfectly still in the middle of the room, watching you. Not barking, not whining, just watching with a stillness that feels almost too composed, too deliberate, like they're memorizing something. You hold that look for just a second. Then the door closes and they're gone from your sight. But somewhere between the driveway and wherever your day takes you, a quiet question settles in. One you've probably pushed aside 100 times because the answer feels too complicated to sit with during a busy morning. What actually happens to them after that door closes? Most dog owners carry a working answer to that question because you need one to get through the day. The answer usually sounds something like this. They sleep. Maybe they sniff around for a bit, check the windows, settle into their favorite corner, and sleep. Dogs sleep a lot, upwards of 12 to 14 hours a day, and they don't have deadlines or screens or a sense of the clock moving. And besides, they seem perfectly fine when you come home. Tail wagging, ready to eat, normal in every visible way. Many owners also hold a quieter belief underneath that one. The dogs don't really experience time the way we do, so an 8-hour absence probably feels to them like not much more than a long afternoon nap. It's a reasonable belief, it's a kind one, but it turns out to be significantly incomplete. Here's where that picture starts to crack. If dogs genuinely had no awareness of elapsed time, no meaningful stress response to being alone, and simply slept through absences without psychological disruption, then separation-related behaviors like destructive chewing, excessive vocalization, and house soiling would scatter randomly throughout the day. But that's not what the research shows. Behavioral scientists document consistently that these distress responses spike in a very specific window, the first 30 to 60 minutes immediately after the owner leaves. The disruption isn't random, it clusters precisely around the moment of loss. That tells us something important and uncomfortable. Your dog is not passively unaware of your absence. They are responding to it, measurably, predictably, in a way that points to something far more psychologically layered than a nap. Researchers have spent years trying to understand exactly what happens inside a dog's body and brain when you walk out that door, and what they've found is striking. Studies using heart rate monitors and cortisol measurements, cortisol being the primary stress hormone in both dogs and humans, have shown that dogs experience a genuine acute physiological stress response in the minutes immediately following departure. This mirrors what's documented in human separation anxiety. A study out of Stockholm University found that dogs left alone showed elevated heart rates and stress hormone levels even when they appeared completely calm on camera. The dog sitting quietly by the door, eyes fixed on it, not making a sound. That dog may not be okay. What the research suggests is that many dogs learn, over time, that expressing distress doesn't bring the owner back, so the anxiety doesn't disappear. It goes inward. It becomes invisible. And invisible doesn't mean absent. What that dog is actually experiencing in those quiet, camera-still moments is something the science describes as unresolved anticipation. Their entire nervous system, their behavioral orientation, their sensory attention, their emotional baseline is pointed toward one event, your return. And in the absence of that event, the system doesn't simply power down and rest. For a significant number of dogs, particularly those with strong attachment bonds, your absence doesn't register as neutral time. It registers as an ongoing event, something that started but hasn't finished yet. They are not moving on with their day. They are, in the most biological sense of the word, waiting. But here's something that makes this even more interesting, that waiting is informed. Dogs actually do have a functional sense of elapsed time, and the science behind that is more sophisticated than most people realize. Research building on the cognitive work of Alexandra Horowitz at Barnard College, and later replicated in ethological studies across Europe, suggests that dogs track duration to biological and environmental cues, hunger rhythms, circadian cycles, and even the concentration of scent molecules in the home, which dissipate at a predictable rate over hours. In one particularly elegant set of studies, dogs were shown to greet returning owners with measurably more enthusiasm after 2 hours of separation than after 30 minutes. They weren't just reacting to your presence, they were reacting to how long you've been gone. The belief that your dog doesn't know how much time has passed. The data says otherwise, and understanding why that is requires going back much further than modern research, back to the evolutionary roots of what a dog actually is. Dogs didn't evolve as solitary animals. They evolved within dense social structures in packs, where isolation wasn't a neutral condition. It was a signal of danger. A wolf separated from the pack was genuinely vulnerable. That wiring, laid down over tens of thousands of years, was never erased by domestication. It was redirected. The pack became the household. The attachment figure, the one whose presence signals safety, routine, and protection, became you. So when you leave and the house goes quiet, it isn't just quiet to your dog at a neurological level. The absence of the person who represents safety can register as something closer to exposure. Not panic necessarily, but not nothing either. Now, and this matters, that experience isn't uniform across the full 8 hours. Research does suggest that many dogs eventually settle into lower arousal resting states, somewhere in the middle of the day, once the acute post-departure stress window passes. But the arc of the day is more complex than a simple descent into sleep. Dogs with stronger attachment bonds tend to have longer activation windows after you leave, and earlier anticipatory arousal before you return, as if they sense the approach of reunion before you've even turned onto your street. The day your dog actually experiences is not a blank waiting room. It is emotionally textured, cycling between rest and alert, between settled and searching, in ways that most owners never see because most owners aren't watching. But here's the part of this that genuinely changes the picture in an important way. The distress isn't inevitable. Research comparing dogs with secure versus anxious attachment styles, categories drawn directly from the attachment frameworks originally developed for human infants, shows that securely attached dogs regulate far more quickly after departure and maintain lower baseline cortisol throughout the day. And what creates secure attachment in dogs maps closely to what creates it in children: consistent, responsive, emotionally available caregiving over time. The twist embedded in all of this science is that what your dog experiences alone in that house is not just a function of how long you're gone. It is a direct reflection of the relationship that existed before the door ever closed. The day alone is shaped by every day that came before it. So what does any of this actually mean for how you move through your mornings and your evenings? The research doesn't ask you to feel guilty. What it suggests, quietly and clearly, is that the architecture of the transition matters more than the length of absence itself. Studies show that calm, low-key departures are associated with less post-departure distress than prolonged emotional goodbyes, which, as tender as they feel, can actually elevate anticipatory anxiety by signaling that something significant is happening. Similarly, a warm, consistent return routine appears to accelerate a dog's physiological return to baseline after a long day of waiting. It isn't about being there more. It's about how you leave and how you come back. Return now to that image from the beginning. You dog sitting still, watching the door after you've gone. You see it differently now. That stillness is not vacancy. It is not simple patience or animal indifference. It is a being whose nervous system is fundamentally wired for social connection, sitting inside an absence that their evolutionary biology registers as significant, waiting for the one presence that makes the world feel ordered and safe again. And when you open that door at the end of the day, when they come running to you, that isn't just excitement, that is resolution. That is the end of an emotional event that began the moment you left. Every reunion you've ever had with your dog has been that. You just didn't have the words for it yet. Now you do.